As you all know by now, law journeys are inspirational stories of motivation, resilience, and success. And today, really privileged again to be talking with Elizabeth Liz Quach about her journey. And this is special because she's coming to us live and direct from London, England, where she now works. And Liz, thank you for being here. It's really great to have you. And if you could start by sharing with us what you're doing now and why you're in London doing it.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Craig. I am now a dual qualified solicitor of England and Wales and also still admitted to the California bar. I'm in-house at a super exciting unicorn startup. It's called Muse. And I am currently building out the legal team there. So we cover all areas of the company's legal needs, coming from areas of commercial, data privacy, fintech, so a bit of regulatory compliance, product support, M&A, corporate disputes. You name it, a trademark, IP. If the company needs it, then that's something that we figure out how to support and we build out. So I've grown my little team. It was just me and my boss when I first started. I was the second lawyer in the company. He brought me in with the goal to build things out. It was about 300 employees when I joined in 2021. It is now over 1,000. And yeah, we've had a load of acquisitions in that time. We've gone through Series C funding in a really tough macro environment last year. It's been an exciting ride with lots and lots to learn. And it's quite different from what I did when I was a lawyer in California.
Liz, actually, I mean, it sounds amazing. And as you know, these types of interviews are about the journey. And so, I'm going to want to kind of start from the beginning and work our way up to this, but I can't help but ask you now if you could share a little bit for those of us, and I count myself among them, who don't really know that much about the British system and what it means to be a solicitor and how that compares to, being a licensed lawyer in a state like California. Could you just give us a little bit of education on that?
I'll try to get to more of the interesting stuff because the technicalities are deep and nuanced, but I was a litigator in California, because I did the civil litigation practicum. Shout out, it was amazing. But I always thought I wanted to be a litigator. And that was 3 years ago. I'm now in-house doing a lot of, there's still some dispute work, unfortunately. So I will end up doing an arbitration here or there, or, a case here or there, but I will also take on a lot of commercial transactional work. And in California, I was able to go to court. I'm not able to do that in the same way here. I mean, solicitors can get rights of audience, just a way to appear, but there's a whole different system here where there are barristers, and it's a whole different route. You take it for granted in the US, really. Like, you become a lawyer, then you just get admitted, and with little grunt work and some paperwork, you can go and appear in court. So it's quite different here. And I quickly realized that if I wanted to live in London and work immediately as a lawyer, it wouldn't be through that route. And luckily, I actually really enjoy all areas of law. So I got my hands dirty in a lot of transactional and commercial work. And I think that the biggest difference is the two routes that they have for solicitors and barristers. And it's quite a privilege in the States where you can just go to court when you're a lawyer. It's not the same here.
Yeah, sorry about that. So to become a solicitor, is there an exam like the bar exam? I'm not asking for all the details, just high level, like how does one become a solicitor? And then if someone wanted to be a barrister, kind of what do they have to do to make that happen? And is it about a time or experience? Just so we can have a general sense before we, of course, focus on what's most important, which is your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to claim I know all the details of the barrister route because once I saw they needed to go through a pupillage and it was just, chambers and very focused, I knew that would take years and it would be a completely different route. So I just decided solicitor. I took the QLTS and that was an exam. It's now called the SQE, but these are exams that allow foreign qualified lawyers to also take the exam. They also have, students from the UK taking it as well. But when I took it in 2021, January 2021, so thick of COVID, um, that exam was one day solely focused on 11 subjects for multiple choice. And then when you pass that, you can sign up for the next exam. You then take on, I think it's 5 or 6 other subjects, and it's a written and oral section. So for 2 weeks long in London, you will have multiple sets of exams for different subjects covering oral advocacy, research, writing, drafting, the like. So that was an intense time. I think that it was a weird time because of COVID as well. That added a lot more to the pressure. But I had actually quit my job and in California at a great firm called Brown, White, and Osborne November during COVID because I thought if I ever want to pursue this dream of mine, I'm going to need to take the leap now. If I continue working, I will not have the time to study. It's COVID, so everyone is just stuck at home having Zoom parties. I can just bury my head in books. It's the perfect time. So I took the safety rug from beneath my feet, just pulled it really quickly. November 30th, 2020, I had my last day at work. And then I started cramming like crazy to take the first set of exams in January. That was intense because borders were closing and I needed to fly to London and I was not sure I would make it. So I fought to get into a spot in New Jersey or New York. I think it was New York, Brooklyn, in Brooklyn, New York. Um, and then, after fighting for the last spot there, I managed to get a ticket, flew on Christmas Eve, flew on Christmas Eve, and then just locked myself in the hotel room for 18 days in quarantine and studied like crazy. Um, Once I finished that exam, I didn't look back. You're not supposed to be able to sign up for the next exam until you've passed. I think some people just wait until they know they've passed to do it. But this exam was about to change course and turn into the SQE in about like 1 or 2 more rounds. So I thought, I need to pass the first time. I need to bet on myself that I've passed. I'm going to study for the next round. So the second I finished the first set of exams, I studied the new subjects, got a seat because I passed, got my seat in London, then flew out in April to do the 2 weeks of exams in London then. And that was my route to qualifying.
Liz, that's just an incredible story. And we're going to talk about much more of your journey. But even in just that little example, you hit the 3 main themes of what these law journeys are about. It was the motivation to do it. It was the resilience to fight through some of those obstacles, COVID included, though COVID had somewhat of a silver lining for you in the sense that it, created a space where you could do it. And then the success, right? And that you succeeded in the examinations and you got the job that you have. Before we jump back and talk about the journey, can you just share with us, Liz, high level how this job came about. So you're in London, were able to pass the exam, but as I understand it from what you said, you had left your job in California, so you didn't have a job. And just kind of walk us through this last part of the journey, and then we will, I promise, jump back and talk about the beginning.
I think that's the key, actually. I didn't have a job and I put myself in that position. Everyone thought I was crazy. A lot of people that I spoke with, mentors, colleagues, friends, they all were like, don't do this. You don't know what the market's like over there. You've never worked over, you never lived there. Um, it's not like you're going from the lateral move of one big law office to another. You're going to land boots on the ground and expect somebody to hire you as a lawyer when you've never studied law in their country. Um, and I networked with, and for context, it wasn't like I woke up that day, November 30th, and was like, I want to go to London. I actually wanted to move to London for years. I had studied abroad in 2016. Um, Professor Mannheim's class, he had something in Italy for data privacy, and it was the first time I had ever flown to Europe, really the first time I ever flew far away. And it opened up my eyes to the world. I realized there's so much out there. I have to see it. And I had moved a lot in my life, but never by choice until I decided to move to LA, and Irvine for undergrad. But before that, I think I went to over 10 different schools because my parents had moved me around. And I learned through those moves that every time you're placed in a new environment, you're forced to grow. You either get stuck or you grow. And I credit a lot of my personal growth for um, I credit a lot of my personal growth to the moves that I've had in life, the many different environments that I had to adapt to quickly. So I thought, what about moving across the world to a different country? That environment will really be growth on steroids. So I thought, if I have one more move in me, it's going to be to another country. Um, I traveled on vacation to London in 2018, fell in love with it, and thought, this is where I'm going to move. Of course, I passed the exam in California. So I thought, okay, let's just be a little bit practical here. Like, you just got licensed in California as a lawyer. If you leave and don't get any experience there, what is that going to do? So I stayed, I put in my time. I got a lot of experience at Brown, White, and Osborne, tons of experience. And by my third year, I realized, okay, I've been wanting to move to London. I've put in my time here. I think I have the skills that I need. At this point, if I don't take the leap, I'm never going to make it over there. And in those 3 years, I had been networking, talking to people, just trying to find out, what is it like? How do you do it? I searched and found some lawyers that were already in London and did the switch, and their stories were not as encouraging. Um, they struggled to find positions as lawyers in London, but they came from big, good law firms. Quinn Emanuel, 10 years of experience there, could not find a position because it's a different market. And um, that person in particular had to take a paralegal role after 2 years of trying to find a position, and he had moved because of his wife. So um, many people told me it's not going to be easy. And I was a third year at the time when I quit. And I'm like, I'm not going to go into any other position but a lawyer. And I'm going to figure out how. So I put my feelers out there. Everyone at my job at the time knew, okay, she wants to make this move. They were supportive. They connected me with people. Um, and it was through different connections that my current boss found me. And we had actually met earlier, not when I moved here. He already knew me before, and he already knew my work ethic. He already knew how I was. So he had a lot of faith in me when he said, "Hey, come into this position, corporate and M&A, and then build the legal team in-house." And I'm like, I've never been in-house. So I was very lucky in that sense. But at the time, I thought, I have to bet on myself. I don't know where this is going to go, but I do know that at the end of every hiring decision is a human being. And all I need is that human to believe in me as much as I believe in me, and I will get the job. So I just said, save, 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 save. Used the savings up in the 6+ months that I was unemployed, just studying and taking exams. Finished the exam in April, realized, okay, now it's time, boots on the ground, figure it out. You're not going back to a job in LA. And within that month, Cisco, my current boss, called me and said, I heard you're in London. I heard that you're looking. Come to Muse.
Liz, there's so much in what you just said that I love. And it's hard for me to even identify all of the things very quickly, but you talked about betting on yourself. And that is a theme that I think runs through these law journeys. You talked about having planned this, although to some folks it may have seemed like a very big risk, right? You spent time cultivating a network, right? You didn't just on a whim decide to move to London. You were very practical about it. You did networking, which is another theme that runs through these law journey interviews, that people are making connections, not necessarily to get a job at that moment, but your current boss is someone who was in your network, and then there was an opportunity, and it was able to work out through an investment you had made early, right, in establishing that network connection. And then also something that you said that was really poignant to me was the importance of remembering that in a hiring decision there is a human being on the other side, and you're never going to get something that you're not qualified for. It goes without saying, but you can be in a position where people can decide to believe in you. And the key was that you said that you believed in yourself, and those things work in tandem. And so I think that's a perfect segue, Liz. I appreciate you sharing with us, the details of how you got where you are now. I want to go back now and help us understand how you got to be the person that you are, and the legal professional that you are. Where did this begin? At what point in your life did you start thinking about being a lawyer? And let's begin to take that journey with you by starting, from the beginning. We know how it ends, how it is currently, but where it all started.
That's going to be very hard to pinpoint. I think that ever since I was a kid, it was very apparent that I always wanted to help people, that I loved learning. I begged my parents to send me to school early when I was 2 years old. They saw me teaching my stuffed animals, playing school, and they sent me early after I took a little test to get in. And I just loved knowledge. I think law itself, I can't actually pinpoint when I decided, yes, for sure, this is right for me. I think I didn't know it was right for me until I was in law school. I definitely know that I decided at some point to take the LSAT and see where that would take me, but I didn't always know. And I think if I did know deep inside, I may have lost the way during my teenage years. I did not have the environment that was as conducive to, healthy productivity, or studying constantly and being very focused. There was a lot of things going on with my family at the time, a lot of things that I had to take care of, and a lot of things that I was going through. So I think that there were a lot of factors that led me to law school, and I have to credit all the people that believed in me along the way when I wasn't focused and wasn't ready to see what my potential was. And I think it's very important to recognize that, because a lot of kids could be capable of so much. They have so much unrealized potential, but not everyone starts at the same part of the race starting line, you know. There are some people who are a bit ahead. Maybe they already learned from good mentors or parents or people. I mean, I didn't know any lawyers when I was in law school. That was when I first met lawyers. Aside from, you know, hearing about my parents' divorce lawyers, I didn't know any. And um, that's not as much role modeling in a very formative time. So I I love the programs like Young Lawyers and other things like that. Think there were even trial, I forgot what it was called, but there was a youth type of trial that I experienced in my life as well. All those initiatives are so important to me, because you just need to get to some child and some teenager and tell them, hey, you can do it. There's so much that you're capable of. And these are the tools that you can use. Here's some tips. Here's some exposure, because you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of kids in underprivileged neighborhoods or areas, they're not going to know. They haven't experienced it. They don't know what it looks like. And yeah, I think there was a period of my life where I didn't know what any of this looked like. But people along the way nudged me in the right direction. I made some decisions to try things and just, again, bet on myself at a earlier stage, but not with as much conviction, because I didn't really know that that was what I really wanted. But I thought, let's give it a try. Um, and then I ended up in law school. And I think it was second year of law school when it clicked. And I was like, I'm going to take this seriously. I've never taken anything that seriously in my life up till then. Maybe the dance team that I was directing in college. But I realized when I find a purpose that has something bigger than just me involved, when I know my why, then I go 200%. And that has always been there. I think I just didn't know my why for some time when I was younger. So when did I know I wanted to be a lawyer? When I was in it, when I was in the thick of law school.
Liz, it's really interesting to hear you describe at that stage in high school, not really necessarily knowing your why, and not feeling like you had as much of a sense of direction of where you wanted to go. Because I think a lot of people, when they perceive what lawyers are, they assume that it was a very linear journey, right? That they knew they wanted to be lawyers, and every step of the way was just, you know, maybe there were challenges, but it was basically smooth and direct. And it's helpful for people to understand that that's not always the case. And so high school, you were describing that, you know, maybe you hadn't quite found your way, and the law thing clicked, if you will, in your second year of law school. Could you briefly help us understand the steps in between? So what happened after high school? And you touched on it briefly that you know, were involved in dance, but I think your involvement with dance, from knowing you, was a little more than you've given credit for it at this point. So you can just take us through that period of time, right? The undergraduate experience post high school, and you know, then we'll connect that up with the law school.
Okay. I mean, I did always care about justice. I think that's something that was a underlying theme. So in UCI, I got my bachelor's degree in criminology, law, and society. I think it's because I've always been fascinated by human behavior as well. My friends always joked I would either be a lawyer or a therapist. And these are the people that probably guided me along the way when I didn't really know. Um, but at UCI, that probably influenced me quite a bit. I realized that type of knowledge can help people. Um, but again, it wasn't my sole focus. At UCI, there was a dance crew called Kava Modern. And I remember watching them in high school, thinking this is the first time I've ever seen Asian representation on the screen like that. They were on a TV show called America's Next Best Dance Crew on MTV. And that team was 6 Asian college students tearing up the screen. I was in high school and I watched and I thought, that's so cool. That's amazing. But it's one of those things you see what people are capable of. You see an example, and then you can see yourself also doing it. This is so important for kids. Then when it came time to choosing which school I wanted to go to, I wasn't too fixed on the school itself. I chose UCI mainly because Kaba Modern went there. That's where Kaba Modern was born. So I picked up my life in the Bay Area, went to, I mean, obviously got accepted first, then went to UCI. And that's where I thought, well, I'm here. I should try out for the dance crew. Thing is, I wasn't really a dancer. I didn't have very much experience dancing. Definitely not to the level of Kaba Modern. But I thought, why not just practice 8 hours every day and see where I can go? So they had a week-long audition. I couldn't pick up the choreography in the hour that they taught each piece of choreography. Other people could because they had a lot more experience. So what I did was record them. I met the people who taught. I asked them questions so they knew who I was. I stood out because I spoke with them. And I think that's probably what made them notice me on audition day. And they realized this is not the same girl. How did she not get the choreography and then suddenly come out and perform it? And it's because, I mean, in the background, I was practicing 8 hours every day. Granted, I probably should have been studying more, but that week I was intent on making Kaba Modern. So I was in the UCI gym practicing nonstop. So the directors at the time actually told me later I was the wild card. They had chosen their team. My teammates were like my cohort, my class, that's what they call it. They're all amazing, really amazing dancers. And the director told me, yeah, well, we took you as a chance because even though there were better dancers than you, and we already had everyone that we needed, we saw how fast you grew. And if you could grow that much in 1 week under your own direction, imagine how much you would grow if we taught you. And 2 years after that, I became the director of the dance company.
Liz, I love that story for so many reasons. And although it's very focused on dance specific, it carries into any other type of endeavor, right? And I know, and you've already explained it really, it's that same motivation, it's that same do what's necessary mindset that you applied to law school and that you applied to being a lawyer and to making the move to being a lawyer in London. And I, just it's funny because I only met you when you got to law school, but I can see the same thing that you just described that you did when you were at UCI with dance in law school, the way you threw yourself into it. And in addition to giving you praise for that, I'm really trying to drive home the point of what it means for other folks, for folks who are pursuing something, for folks who, like you did, saw something that you wanted and you went after it. Now, it's not always going to work out, right? It did for you, but it's the mindset that you brought to it. It's the passion that you had for something and you pursued it. And I see the commonality between them saying they were going to take a chance on you because of what you demonstrated. Were there any things that you found that you did in law school other than work extraordinarily hard, which is clear, just a part of who you are and your work ethic, but any things you did in law school that you think contributed to your success there, to rising to the challenge that law school presents, that you would want to share with folks who are either currently in law school or who may be going to law school at some point on their journey?
Yeah, I think one thing, and this can tie into all the other parts of my story as well, don't let fear paralyze you or prevent you from realizing your potential. Because I saw firsthand fellow law students and other people. I would say that with dance as well, and any other endeavor that I've had where it's highly competitive and people do have a fear of failure in it. Sometimes they're so scared of failing that they don't even try. And you'll see that everywhere. I think a lot of people will think they're in a job, that's what they wanted, they're set. But most people, most adults I know, do not know what they want to do still. And they are in a job, they are in a career of 10 plus years, 20 plus years, and they still don't know. And that's normal because we're developing, we're changing. But I think part of it is also the question of what unrealized dream do you have lurking in the corner that you've always suppressed because you're too scared to see if you could have done it. And I think that was something that always existed in me. I was hyper conscious of whether or not I was not doing something because I was scared of failing. And I think that really started in law school. I started paying attention to that and realizing where are the moments where I'm not trying because I might think that it won't work out. That's the time to dive in. That's the time to say, at the other side, on the other side of this, is the potential for a lot of growth. You only feel fear because there's something unknown. And if you address that, you go into that, you will discover so much more about yourself.
So, Liz, you were talking about the importance of not letting the fear of failure stop you from taking chances and pursuing goals and dreams. Seems like a perfect opportunity for you to share any other advice or suggestions you have that reflect your own experience, that you could impart some wisdom to folks who are at an earlier phase of the journey.
Yeah, I would have a lot of tips and pointers for anyone who is feeling like they don't know or can't do it or is too scared to try. I actually think this is relevant for all ages. And it's like society programs you to think this way. And I'm well aware of how differently I think sometimes because I purposely trained my brain to think like this. I guess that um, desire was there, at least for me, to change how my thought patterns were. But most of what we think is habitual. How we think, a lot of that habitual. But we can change those neural pathways. We can condition ourselves in a different way. And I did a lot of that in law school. I did a lot of that when I was directing the dance company for the first time. And I did it because I knew it was possible. So that's one of those things, maybe credit to the behavioral sciences and stuff that I've learned in UCI, but understanding human nature and how, like, theories of human nature, and how you can apply these theories to rewire yourself, understanding how habits work and how you can change your habits, super powerful. And then when you combine that with the ultimate outcome of having the perspective of I can do anything that I set my mind to, and you'll be unstoppable. Because once you change your mindset to understand that you are able to do things, you eliminate the paralysis that comes from fear. Because I don't think you can really eliminate fear, nor would I say you should, because fear, it is there to signal things to you. And beyond human behavior and fight or flight, I'm saying fear at a basic level signals something that is unknown, different, scary, whatever it may be. It's probably because you don't believe that you can. It's not because you're about to die, although your body can't really tell the difference. And you're getting all the nerves and your stomach is in knots, and you just have to recognize what that is and then push past it. Train your brain to push past it. And then whatever it is, you will figure out what it is that you need. If you want it enough, you will figure out what you need to change to be able to achieve that thing. And then you put your plan together, you go for it. It's as simple as that.
Well, Liz, you embodied that in everything that you've done, and really powerful lessons that you've shared with us. I just want to thank you again for taking the time and for sharing your law journey. And of course, I'm looking forward to continuing to see what you do next, and just wish you nothing but the best going forward.
Thank you so much for having me, Professor Craig.